Wanted to talk to you today about how you can give other people access to your WordPress website. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure they're a trusted resource. Typically, it's either a web developer or someone who's going to maybe be doing search engine optimization or managing some aspect of your website. There's going to come a time where you're going to need to give them access to your website. A friendly tip before you give anyone access to your website is to make sure the website is backed up. There's a video that we did specifically about backup services that are off-site. CodeGuard is one of them. We're going to give you a link to that video in the notes below so that you can check it out. But make sure before you give anyone access to your website, you do a backup. And we strongly recommend it's with a service that is outside of your web server. So not like a backup buddy or something that's part of WordPress that records to the backup to the same web server, because if that gets corrupt, your backup's going to be corrupt as well. So getting back to WordPress, in order to add a user, you're going to log in. And once you log in, you're going to use the navigation bar that's vertically on the left. You're going to go over to users and you're going to go to add new. This is where you'd put all the person's information. I typically use a first name and maybe last initial. So we're going to use the ever popular Jane Doe. So Jane D. We'll say her email address is janeD@janedoe.com. First name is Jane. Second name is Doe. The website is her website, janedoe.com. The reason you're doing this is when you have a bunch of people that have access to your website, you can look at the list of all users, which is accessed by this link. I'm not going to click on it now. And at a glance, you can see that Jane Doe is with janedoe.com. The next thing you want to do is create a password. By default, it creates a really strong one for you. If you wanted, you could erase this and put your own. That's fine. Now, in this case, we're going to create a really strong one, but Jane Doe is going to get an email. I'm going to show you how that happens in a second. And Jane Doe is going to be prompted to create her own password. So there's no reason to have to worry about giving this password to Jane Doe, because Jane Doe is going to create her own. The way that works is this checkbox, which by default is checked. So basically that means once you add this user using this button, an email is going to be sent to this email address saying, hey, you've been set up to access this website. Please click here, and it's going to give her instructions to create her own password. Last but not least, you need to assign a role. These are all the different roles that a user can have. Administrator is the largest role that gives access to everything. Well, there are maybe times where maybe you have someone who's just working on content that you don't want them to have the ability to add users or to add plugins to your website. So you would give them a lower level role. I'm going to also put in the notes a URL to this website here, which I found to be pretty helpful, which talks about all of the roles. And then it goes into detail about what each of those roles are. So before you give access to anyone, you're going to want to make sure that they have the right role and access to just what you want them to have access to. For our purposes here, we're going to click administrator. And when we are done, we're going to hit add new user. So it's pretty much that simple, what you need to do in order to add a user to WordPress.